Ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully. The Bible never once told us to make the bed our altar. Oh yes, you may whisper a prayer before sleep, but prayer is not meant to be birthed in comfort. Prayer is meant to cost something. The fire of God never fell on a pillow. The fire of God always fell on sacrifice. Do you hear me? When Abraham laid Isaac down, it was not on a feathered bed. It was on an altar, and prayer is no different. Prayer loses its fire when comfort becomes its altar. Many are waiting until they are tired, until the body is heavy, until the eyelids are closing, and then they try to touch heaven. My friend, that is not prayer. That is not sacrifice. The bed is a place of rest, not the battlefield of the spirit. The enemy laughs when he sees you trade your warfare for your mattress. The bed will give you dreams, but the altar will give you visions. Disciples prayed in the upper room, not in the bedroom, not in the bedroom. 10 days of intercession shook the nations, but it did not happen beneath blankets. It happened because they gathered, they tarried, they pressed beyond weariness. Sacrifice gives prayer its fragrance. Heaven smells prayer when it costs you something. A prayer whispered half asleep may never rise higher than the ceiling. But a prayer birthed in discipline rises like incense before the throne. Discipline is the womb of true intercession. Discipline wakes you when the flesh says, "I stay in bed." Discipline bends the knees when comfort says, "I lie down." Discipline makes the difference between weak words and heaven-moving cries. Delay weakens desire. When you wait until the last moment, when you put prayer after everything else, the heart grows dull, the passion grows cold. A postponed prayer is often a powerless prayer. The flesh loves ease, but the spirit calls for early rising. The prophets rose before dawn. Jesus prayed before the day broke. Paul sang at midnight in prison. None of them found revival under the sheets. Heaven honors prayer birthed in obedience, not in laziness. When you rise before the world rises, when you choose the secret place before the comfort place, then your prayer carries weight, then your words carry fire, then heaven bends low to listen. Oh, my friend, don't let your bed become your altar. Rise up, rise before the day steals your passion. Give God the best, not the leftovers. Give Him the first flame of your spirit, not the dying spark at the end of the night. For prayer in its true power is not born in comfort. It is born in sacrifice. It is born in obedience. And it is born when you rise before the bed steals your fire. Prayer loses its fire when comfort becomes its altar, because true communion with God was never designed to flow from a place of ease. The moment you choose the softest place, the most comfortable position, the most convenient hour, you strip prayer of its sharp edge. Prayer is a battle, not a lullaby. When the flesh finds rest, the spirit often loses alertness. That is why Jesus told his disciples, "Watch and pray." He did not say, "Lie down and pray." He did not call them to drowsiness. He called them to vigilance. Comfort has a way of dulling the senses. The pillow will cradle your thoughts, the blanket will soothe your body, and slowly your mind will slip into sleep. And what was meant to be intercession turns into silence. What was meant to be fire dies into ashes. The greatest prayers in Scripture were prayed in tears, in groanings, in travail, not in ease and not in slumber. When comfort becomes the altar, sacrifice disappears, and without sacrifice there is no fragrance that rises before heaven. David said, "I will not offer to God that which costs me nothing." But when we offer Him prayer from the softest place, at the weakest moment, when our body is already surrendering to sleep, then truly it costs nothing. Heaven does not move because of empty words. Heaven moves when there is blood in the sacrifice, when there is a price in the prayer. The secret is this. Prayer is powerful when it interrupts your flesh. It is mighty when it pushes against what the body craves. The flesh craves comfort, the flesh craves sleep, the flesh craves the softness of a pillow. But the spirit must rise, must stand, must walk the floor, must kneel before God in surrender. That is where fire is born. That is where true power is released. Comfort weakens, but sacrifice strengthens. sacrifice strengthens. And if prayer is to carry fire, it cannot be birthed in the lap of comfort. It must be birthed in the arms of surrender, for only then does it rise like thunder before the throne of God. The bed is a place of rest, not the battlefield of the spirit. God created the bed for the body to recover, for strength to be restored, for the weary to lie down and find sleep. But the battlefield of the spirit is not won in the sheets of comfort. It is won on your knees in the secret place, in the hours when flesh would rather be still but the soul chooses to rise. Prayer is not meant to be a gentle whisper before drifting into dreams. It is meant to be a cry that shakes the heavens, a declaration that pushes back the darkness. When you treat the bed as your altar, you confuse what God designed for the body with what He demands of the spirit. The bed will soothe you, but it will not sharpen you. It will rest you, but it will not arm you. Warriors are not trained in softness. They are trained in discipline, in focus, in resistance. The same is true in prayer. You cannot win spiritual battles lying down in drowsiness. Spiritual enemies are not fought with half-closed eyes and wandering thoughts. They are fought with alert hearts, watchful spirits, and words spoken with authority. The saints of old understood this. They went into caves, into gardens, into mountains to pray. They lifted their voices in the midnight hour. They cried out in the early morning. They knew the bed could restore the flesh, but only the altar could restore the soul. Jesus himself rose a great while before daybreak and went to a solitary place to pray. If the Son of God did not make the bed his battlefield, how can we? The bed is a place of rest, but rest will not break chains. Rest will not heal the sick. Rest will not open prison doors. Only prayer soaked in sacrifice, prayer that costs you convenience, prayer that calls you out of ease and into surrender. Only that kind of prayer moves heaven. The enemy knows this, and that is why he lulls so many into believing they can fight their greatest battles under blankets. But the truth is, if you want to see victory, you must rise from the bed and take your stand in the spirit. For the battlefield is not beneath the covers. The battlefield is before the throne of God. Disciples prayed in the upper room, not in the bedroom. They did not retreat to their beds when the promise of the Spirit was near. They gathered together in one place, united in expectation, pressing in with hearts aflame. The upper room was not a place of comfort. It was a place of waiting, of surrender, of preparation. There they chose obedience over convenience, focus over ease. Had they hidden away in their private quarters, history would not have shifted. But because they left the bed and climbed into the place of prayer, the fire of Pentecost fell. The upper room speaks of elevation. It is a place above distractions, a place set apart from the noise of ordinary living. The bedroom isolates you, but the upper room gathers you. The bedroom is where the body yields to sleep, but the upper room is where the spirit wakes to destiny. There is a reason Scripture recorded their obedience to assemble and to wait together. It was not by accident that the sound of a rushing mighty wind came where they were sitting. Heaven always finds the place of sacrifice. When believers hide their prayer life only in comfort, they miss the upper room experience. Revival does not fall on pillows. It falls where men and women press beyond the ordinary. The disciples could have prayed at ease, but they chose to tarry in unity, and that decision shifted the course of nations. 120 souls lifted their voices, not with the murmurs of sleep, but with the groanings of hunger. And in that place, God answered with fire. The upper room became the birthplace of the church, the launching pad of a movement, the cradle of power. If they had chosen the bedroom, the story would have ended in silence. But because they chose the upper room, the story exploded into glory. So it is with us. If we want the Spirit to fall, if we long for the fire to come, we must leave behind the bed of ease and enter the place of true waiting, for only there will heaven invade earth. Sacrifice gives prayer its fragrance because prayer without cost is often nothing more than words. The power of prayer is not in its length or eloquence, but in the price that accompanies it. When David said, "I will not offer to God that which costs me nothing," He revealed the secret of why heaven responds to some prayers and not others. Words spoken in convenience carry little weight, but words soaked in surrender, birthed out of discipline, laced with tears and longing, those words rise like incense before the throne. Sacrifice is what separates empty ritual from living fire. When you deny your flesh, when you push past weariness, when you rise in the night or kneel in the early morning while others sleep, your prayer carries a fragrance that comfort can never produce. Heaven recognizes the scent of sacrifice. Angels respond to it. God leans in to receive it. For it is not simply your words he desires. It is the heart that chooses him above ease, the will that lays down its rights to give him first place. Throughout Scripture, whenever fire fell, it always fell on sacrifice. Elijah built an altar, laid the sacrifice, and then prayed, and the fire of God consumed it. Prayer without sacrifice is like an altar without wood. It has no place for the fire to fall. But when you offer God what costs you, when your prayer carries the ashes of your comfort and the oil of your obedience, then the flame descends and the fragrance fills the heavens. Sacrifice is the fragrance that tells heaven, this prayer matters. This cry is not cheap. This worship is not casual. And when that fragrance rises, God cannot ignore it. That is why the greatest breakthroughs, the deepest encounters, and the strongest anointings are always born out of prayers that required something of the one who prayed. Sacrifice transforms simple words into heavenly incense, and that incense moves the heart of God. Discipline is the womb of true intercession, because prayer that changes things is never birthed in casual moments, but in the steady, consistent yielding of the soul to God. Feelings may inspire you to pray once in a while, but it is discipline that teaches you to return again and again until heaven opens. Intercession is not the child of impulse. It is born through labor, through a heart that has learned to stay, to watch, to press in, even when nothing feels different. The flesh will always resist prayer. It will tell you to sleep a little longer, to rest a little more, to postpone your time with God. But discipline silences the voice of the flesh. It is discipline that bends the knees when the body says, "I lie down." It is discipline that lifts the hands when weariness presses in. It is discipline that opens the mouth to cry out when silence feels easier. Without discipline, prayer is shallow, inconsistent, and powerless. With discipline, prayer becomes a river that flows day after day until it carves its path straight into the throne room of heaven. True intercession is costly. It demands focus. It demands sacrifice. It demands waiting when answers delay. And only discipline can carry a soul through that kind of waiting. Intercession is not a passing request. It is travail, it is groaning, it is standing in the gap until heaven responds. And like a child formed in the womb, such prayer is hidden for a season, grown in patience, nurtured in persistence. When discipline holds the heart steady, intercession is conceived, nourished, and finally birthed with power. Great moves of God have always come from disciplined intercessors, those who refused to quit, who prayed through the night, who rose at dawn, who tarried until fire fell. Their secret was not comfort, their strength was not impulse, it was discipline. For discipline is the womb, the hidden place, the unseen furnace where true intercession is formed and made ready to be revealed. Delay weakens desire, and desire postponed becomes empty words. When the Spirit nudges you to pray and you put it off, the flame that was kindled in that moment begins to fade. The urgency of heaven waits for no man. A call to pray is an invitation to touch eternity, but when it is delayed, the soul grows distracted. The flesh grows stronger, and the moment passes with little left but faint whispers. Desire is like fire, it must be tended while it burns. If you wait too long, the fire dies, and what could have been a blaze becomes only smoke. Postponed prayer often turns into powerless prayer. You intend to pour out your heart, but by the time you finally bow your head, the weight of that longing has diminished. What once felt like travail now feels like routine. What once demanded tears now only stirs words. Heaven hears the difference, because God does not respond to empty syllables, but to the cry of a heart aflame. And when delay has drained the flame, all that remains is form without fire. The enemy knows this, which is why his strategy is not always to deny you prayer, but to delay you in prayer. He whispers, do it later. Wait until you're free. Tomorrow will be better. And by the time a later comes, the moment of divine visitation has slipped away. What was meant to shake the heavens is lost in the comfort of postponement. Desire must be answered while it is alive. When God stirs the heart, when conviction burns, when passion rises, that is the moment to kneel, to cry, to enter the secret place. For prayer delayed is often prayer denied, not by God, but by our own negligence. The Spirit moves in seasons, in moments, in divine timings. To miss those timings is to reduce holy fire into fading embers. And what was meant to birth breakthrough becomes nothing more than empty words spoken after the passion is gone. Flesh loves ease, but the Spirit calls for early rising. The body craves softness, warmth, and rest, but the Spirit of God pulls you out of slumber and whispers, "Come away, rise up, meet me while the world still sleeps." The bed is sweet to the flesh, but it is a thief to the soul when it robs you of those sacred hours where heaven waits to commune with you. Every great man and woman of God understood this tug of war between ease and obedience, and everyone who chose the Spirit over the flesh carried a fire that the world could not extinguish. The flesh will always argue with you. It will tell you, you've worked hard, you deserve more sleep. It will remind you of your weakness, your exhaustion, your need for comfort. But the Spirit never speaks of what you deserve. The Spirit calls you to what you were made for. You were not made for endless slumber. You were made for encounter. You were not born to indulge the flesh. You were born to touch the eternal. And the secret to walking in that eternal power is often hidden in the discipline of early rising. There is a reason Jesus rose a great while before day to pray. Before the noise of the crowds, before the demands of the sick and the needy, before his name was shouted in the streets, he met with the Father. Those morning hours became the well from which he drew strength to face every storm, every conflict, every cross. If the Son of God himself left the warmth of the bed to seek his Father in the early hours, how much more must we? Early rising is not about the clock. It is about priority. It is about telling God, before I meet anyone, before I face anything, I choose you. When you rise early to pray, you give God your first fruits, not your leftovers. You bring him the sharpness of your mind, not the dull fragments of a tired day. You bring him your best offering, not the crumbs after everything else has taken its share. The Spirit honors this choice because it is a sacrifice, and sacrifice always has a fragrance that reaches heaven. The flesh, on the other hand, will never call you to rise early. It will never push you into prayer. It will never encourage you to fast, to worship, to intercede. The flesh wants comfort, not crucifixion, but the Spirit knows that only in dying to the flesh can life flow. The Spirit calls you out of bed because the Spirit knows what is waiting for you in those early hours. Revelation, intimacy, strength, and alignment with God's will. For the Spirit knows that if you do not start with God, the day will steal your fire. Look through Scripture and you will see a pattern. Abraham rose early to build altars. Moses rose early to meet God on the mountain. Joshua rose early before battle. David rose early to sing praises. The prophets rose early to declare the word of the Lord. Rising early was not about routine. It was about readiness, about answering the call of God before anything else could distract them. And because they rose early, they carried something that lingered with them through the day. Delay weakens desire, but early rising fuels it. When you rise at the whisper of the Spirit, when you push past the voice of the flesh, you find that your prayer carries weight, your worship carries power, and your spirit carries peace. The day may bring storms, but a morning spent with God anchors you. The day may bring battles, but the strength you received at dawn makes you unshakable. Early rising is warfare against the flesh. It is telling your body, you will not rule me. Comfort will not control me. My hunger for God is greater than my hunger for sleep, and in that decision lies victory. The devil can handle a believer who prays casually, but he trembles before one who rises early, disciplined, watchful, burning with fresh fire before the day has even begun. Flesh loves ease, but ease will never produce fire. Ease will never birth revival. Ease will never unlock heaven's treasures. Only the Spirit can do that, and the Spirit calls, always calls, for early rising. It is the cry of the bridegroom in the Song of Songs. Arise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. It is the tug of eternity on a sleepy soul. And when you answer, when you rise, when you give God the first moments of your day, you discover that what you lost in sleep is nothing compared to what you gain in His presence. So rise, child of God. Break the hold of the flesh, answer the call of the Spirit. For the morning belongs to those who choose Him above ease, and in the quiet before dawn, when heaven bends low to meet you, you will know why the Spirit never stops calling you to rise early. Heaven honors prayer birthed in obedience, not in laziness. God has never been moved by empty words spoken without heart, nor by rituals performed without sacrifice. What touches His throne is a prayer that springs out of a heart willing to obey, a heart that says yes to His call even when it is inconvenient, even when the body protests, even when the flesh cries for ease. Prayer birthed in obedience carries weight because it is not just spoken, it is lived. It is the echo of a life surrendered, the cry of one who chooses His will above their own. Laziness, on the other hand, robs prayer of its power. When you wait until the body is half asleep, when you offer God the fragments of your time, when you delay until the moment has lost its urgency, you are not offering Him the best. You are offering Him the leftovers, and heaven does not honor leftovers. He is the God of the first, the God who asks for the first fruits, the God who calls for the best portion. Prayer without obedience is like sacrifice without fire. It lies on the altar, but never rises. Obedience opens the heavens. When Abraham obeyed, he became the father of nations. When Moses obeyed, the sea parted. When Joshua obeyed, the walls of Jericho fell. And when Jesus obeyed even unto death, salvation was poured out upon all humanity. If obedience carries such power in action, how much more does it carry in prayer? For the prayer that springs from obedience is not just words. It is agreement with the will of God, alignment with His timing and surrender to His purposes. Such prayer heaven cannot ignore. Lazy prayer is shallow prayer. It does not pierce the darkness. It does not break chains. It does not stir angels into motion. But obedient prayer, prayer offered when He calls, in the place He calls, with the heart He desires, such prayer carries fire. It reaches where lazy prayer cannot go. It touches where casual prayer cannot reach. It shakes what careless prayer cannot move. Heaven does not respond to the one who merely intends to pray. Heaven responds to the one who obeys the Spirit's urging. The nudge that says, rise now. The whisper that says, come away. The pull that says, kneel before me. When you answer in that moment, your prayer is clothed with authority. It is obedience that gives prayer its fragrance, obedience that gives it its fire, obedience that lifts it from earth to heaven like incense rising from the altar. So do not let laziness steal your communion with God. Do not give Him what costs you nothing. Rise when He calls, pray when He prompts, yield when He stirs your spirit. For heaven does not honor the prayers of a drowsy soul, but heaven always honors the prayers of an obedient heart. Beloved, if there is one truth to carry from this, it is this. God is not looking for prayers that rise from the pillow of laziness. He is looking for prayers that rise from the altar of obedience. The bed may give rest to the flesh, but it will never give fire to the spirit. The flesh may crave ease, but the Spirit calls you higher. Every time you choose obedience over comfort, you choose fire over ashes, power over weakness, heaven over earth. Do not waste the moments when the Spirit stirs you. Do not postpone the call that whispers in the midnight hour. Rise, for your rising is a sign of surrender. Kneel, for your kneeling is a declaration of victory. Obey, for your obedience is the key that opens the heavens. Remember this, revival never falls on the sleepy and breakthrough never comes to the lazy. But when men and women dare to obey God's call, when they push past the bed of ease and stand upon the altar of sacrifice, the heavens open, the fire falls, and the world is changed. So today, make your choice. Comfort or calling, ease or fire, laziness or obedience. For the prayer that heaven honors is not the prayer that costs you nothing. It is the prayer that costs you everything. And when you give him everything, he will give you himself. And that is worth more than all the sleep in the world.